how much of ego do you experience with me in the relationship?
When we initially started dating, right? The
Because
little aspects that we dealt with and so much of ego from then to now, we've we've come a ways right now. Every time I say, you know what, I think this about this, you'll be like, no, this is what I think.
I don't
about
say no. I say, oh, I think differently. I mean, there's a difference. See, it's in your head.
That's where we shall agree to disagree yet again. I've always kind of rooted for your success, man. So for me, one of the things about you is like I've always known you, right? I knew you even before we knew each other in the past. I think now we we get to it and just say it, finish it, move on, and then you're fine. Hello, and welcome to another episode of True Perspective. And we hope you're keeping well. It's been some time.
Hello.
It's been some time away for us, but here we are. And today we're going to be talking about relevance and managing our successes and egos in our relationship, and how do we manage to maintain our relevance in our relationships, in our marriage, for example.
In any relationship, I guess, for that matter, but more so in in romantic relationships, our partners, who are living together.
Yeah, it also could be business partners.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm not sure. Let's go with the flow and then figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly I think romantic relationships, and yeah, I feel like not many people, or I've actually never heard people talk about it. Um, but I think in marriages, in partnerships, there is so much love, there is so much care. In spite of that, there's ego too, and there is so much ego that I think sometimes it is destructive, sometimes it is I don't know, so painful, or we cause pain to each other, to people, that can change the whole narration of a relationship. So firstly, I mean, I like to ask you, like, how much of ego do you experience with me in the relationship?
For me, it's actually quite hard to relate because I find
Oh, please.
What do you mean? As in,
Come on, we both are egoistic.
No, we're egoistic, but I don't think
Yeah.
I'm egoistic about your successes.
No, I'm not talking about successes necessarily. See, one is that, of course, but I'm generally saying, because it could be in a situation, right? Like where, I don't know, like it could be, I can't even, there is no specific situation, but in any space or time or a conversation, even, the ego could pop up. And, like,
Well, for me, I think it's over the years, it's gotten a little bit more refined. Now there's a lot more thought before saying something, a lot more thought about how I want to communicate something, what is the end goal, what do I want at the end of it, is there something that I want, if it's based on what I want, how do I want to communicate that to you, and based on how you respond, I'm like, okay, because we've lived together for so long, more often than not, I know your responses. And then there are some responses that are triggers for me, and then there are some responses where, like, you catch me by surprise, I don't expect it to happen. So those ones, the ones that catch me by surprise, I'm actually quite good with it, because it's like I'm dealing with something new. So it's like, oh, it's fascinating, I'm curious. But with the ones that trigger me are the ones where I have to, like, Fusa, and I have to kind of figure out, okay, how do I know that this is going to come, and I know that's going to trigger me. So I have to kind of, okay, this can happen. So if this does happen, then how will I navigate through to get across to what I'm trying to get across to you, and why trying to get to that point. I try and explain those things to you and hope that the conversation doesn't get derailed and we can stay on point. Because oftentimes when, I feel like when I say something to you, then I feel like I'm met with, like, you don't like being told stuff. So for me, I have to.
I don't like being ordered.
Yeah, exactly. You don't like being told
Told is
stuff.
different from ordered.
You don't like being told stuff.
I don't like being ordered.
So with that, for me, I have to navigate through how I communicate something to you, because both of us have very strong egos. So in that case, I have to figure, like, I have to. There's a lot of thought that goes behind it, because for me, maintaining peace in a relationship, and having that peace of mind and not having that squabble or discomfort is something that is a priority for me. So for me, because that is priority to me, because that means a lot to me, I'm like, okay, I pick my battles. Like, if there's something there are, like, the negotiables and non-negotiables, and we've dealt with that, and we've had this thing where it's initially we used to go at each other, and it used to be really, really hard. I think till one day I came and I said, you know what, we need to set standards for our relationship. We need to set negotiables and
Set standards for our fights, even.
yeah, and said, like, set, like, understand what each other's needs are, and then what are negotiable between for us individually, and what's non-negotiable for us individually. And then I think when we had that conversation, and then once we kind of laid that down, and we said, okay, these are what our individual needs are, and then this is what are negotiables, like, sorry, non-negotiables. So because the needs are different from wants, so if I have to say, negotiables would be wants, non-negotiables would be needs. So when we set that in stone, I think things got a lot more smoother for us, like dimensionally smoother for us, in my perception.
Mm. Yeah, but I guess the whole, I think the conversation is, yes, that was, I think, yeah, one of the best things that we did in our relationship.
Mm.
Coming to egos again, like, okay, I'll give an example. So initially in our relationship, I remember everything, or most of the things used to be about to get things based on my ego. At that point, probably I didn't even realize it was my ego. It was like, this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be. And I think once I started recognizing that that was not leading conversations or situations or fights to any direction, is when I think ego used to or was attached to a lot of anger then, and I think now, when I think started being aware of what is this ego, and then I realized it had, like you said, like a lot of triggers, lot of past triggers, and probably not even from our relationship. It was just like a thing that I was used to or not used to, or was disturbed by.
Mm.
And the minute I felt like that could be in front of me, I think it was more like a defense mechanism to safeguard myself, where ego popped in and said,
Mm.
it's my way or highway. And
Mhm.
I think over time, I think the more I think I've worked on myself, I've realized that I think it's good to have like a bit of ego, or even a lot of ego, but I think it just has to be a healthy one.
Yeah, I think.
And
I think
because that's not a bad thing. I don't think ego is completely like a bad thing.
I would say, I think a healthy ego is what I would call self-respect. That's how I would define it. I think when it goes beyond self-respect, and I think there's a fine line, and then when it threads beyond self-respect, beyond a certain point, it becomes ego, and then so for me, self-respect is a very positive kind of headspace, while as ego can tread on a negative headspace as well, can make you destructive, can has kind of negative connotations. For me, that's how I see it. That's the differentiation I make. I think what I would perceive a healthy ego would I would call self-respect, right? And then, and I think individually we know when we cross over. There are a lot of times in fights where I know that there's a point where it's self-respect, and then something has triggered me, and I've gone to ego, and I'm refusing to come back to self-respect. And then that's destructive. So that's when I have to, like, stop, and I have to have to like, and there are times that I'm having conversations and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point of this? And then that's when I'm like, okay, then I'm like, okay, no, I have to. I know I don't like it, especially in the last few years. It's been a point where, okay, I know this is hard, but I'm going to switch back here. It's gonna feel so unnatural because I think like a lot of my patterns were set in childhood. To an extent where today I'm having, even though I'm having to work on those aspects or those patterns to reverse it back to something brand new for me right now, which is like very foreign. It's like it doesn't feel natural at all. Like a lot of times in a lot of our arguments and a lot of our like squabbles or fights, like for me, I have to like, okay, like I have to even though like physically I'm not feeling okay, in my head I'm like, I'm fine, okay, it's good, it's all good, it's fine, yeah, it's good. And I'm like trying to make that new feeling feel like home. So
Yeah.
it's like building that into my muscle memory, which is like, that's the hard part. But for me, that's how I see the difference between self-respect and ego. So for me, that's the difference.
Healthy ego.
Healthy ego is self-respect for me. When it becomes unhealthy, it becomes destructive, and it's selfish, and it's just self-centered, and then it doesn't really care about anything else. For me, that is ego. That's the difference. What's your differentiation?
I just feel like any form of ego, especially like any form of ego when overused, is destructive, one to self. And I feel like relationships or things you do, it could be anything. Um, but I just feel like it's a necessity to have like a healthy ego.
Mm.
And I think, yeah, it makes sense when you say it's, on the lines of self-respect. I would probably think that it's more like, I think once you become aware of that ego and accept that, yes, like, because I hear a lot of people say, I don't have an ego at all. And I'm like, wow, like, I think it's a part of the human nature, right? It's
Yeah.
like everything else. And I just feel like it's always there. It's about managing it and practicing, um, managing it again and again and again, where you don't give it control, where ego is taking control over your mind, your every emotion, or anything else.
Yeah, and I think if you don't have an ego, and there are people who, not because they're selfless, not necessarily because they're selfless. I think there can be people without egos, but I think like maybe a lot of them, or a big percentage of them, would be people who get used and abused, and they're like just battered and beaten down. The confidence is really low. I think that there could be people there, but if I had to imagine a person without an ego, either they have to be like a like a
Somebody
higher being,
who's, yeah, exactly,
like an
like
extremely
somebody
higher
who's
being.
probably living in the mountains, who have
Correct.
no
No challenges in that sense. Where,
I mean, no
but
offense to people
no,
who
no.
are
When I say
doing
challenges,
that.
I mean no challenges
But yeah,
externally. The
exactly.
challenges, everything that they face are internal,
They're so,
and
I
the only
think,
external challenge they face, I think, is the weather, to a large extent. To
probably.
probably, isn't so we
But
don't know,
I
as we've
believe
never been
that
there.
everyone has an ego. It's a part of a human system, I think.
Mm.
And I guess because it plays a role,
I
it
think people
has
who
a
get
role.
abused don't necessarily have an ego.
I doubt it.
Like people who get abused and they grow up getting like physically abused, beaten up, like they just become like just docile, and like I feel like they could be those kind of people. It's very hard for them to even stand up for themselves because they don't even understand the concept of what it means to stand up for themselves.
But yeah, but it's ego is not just about standing up for yourself,
No,
right?
but at least a healthy ego begins from there. Only if you have a healthy one can you have an unhealthy one, right? If you don't even have a
I
healthy
think
one,
it's the other way around.
how do you mean?
Because I think you have an ego, you have to make it a healthy one. Like, it's not like it comes as, oh, healthy one and unhealthy one. That's what I think.
Mm.
There is an ego, and it's how you, I think, use it, how you deal with it, how every
Mm.
time it shows up, you give it importance or not, or how you allow it to play out the way it probably will on its own or not. I think makes it healthy or not. And I don't think it's a separate one. I feel like it's the same ego that comes up, but it's how we keep dealing with that ego or handling that ego.
Mm.
And over time, probably the intensity of it keeps coming down when you become aware of it. Um, but I think it's something that's a part of every human being.
Yeah. Maybe the ones who get abused, probably their egos are crushed completely, and that's why
See,
I'm just trying to perceive what I said to you
because
from your
I
from what you
understood
just
what
said
you
right now.
said, but I'm thinking it's see they might be crushed from the whole
Or their
incident.
egos must be crushed
E-
because of the way they've been
because
abused.
I think one part of the ego could be crushed because of what is done to them or happened to them, or the incident that's probably shocked them or
No,
hurt
no, I'm
them.
not talking. I don't think these will be individual incidents or episodes. I think there will be a series of things. Like there would have been
Yeah.
consistent abuse for years and years together, which beats their ego down to the point where they it they don't know what it is to have um, self-respect. One, a healthy ego or an unhealthy ego, where they just like even fight for something, right?
Hmm. I think because you're using self-respect as a parallel
Mm,
is why you're probably looking at it, but
mm,
I see it very differently,
mm.
because I feel like ego is very different, and a healthy ego is very different from every other thing like
So, how is
self-respect.
healthy ego different from self-respect for you?
I feel like healthy ego
Or how
uh,
would you define a healthy ego?
is when you know that you're doing it for a more productive thing over just trying to prove a point or just trying to
When
win
you're
an
trying,
argument.
no, I didn't understand. Can you help me understand? And so, when you're trying to do something, as in,
Some No, I'm not. I didn't say.
okay, so,
I didn't say trying to do something. I said when you're using the ego to make any situation when it's popped up, when you're making that situation productive over destructive, where you're choosing to use it in a way where it's not going to be all about just getting my way or winning an argument, even, or I don't know, just anything where it's productive over actually just trying to prove a point.
mm,
And that's what I meant by I don't think there's a separate, oh, I have a healthy ego and then I have a normal ego. I think it's just ego. I think how it's used in every space is what it is.
mm.
What defines it as healthy, or
Okay, how would you define ego then?
it's something that I feel, that feeling about ourselves where we feel the need to be one, right, and everything becomes about just us and not the whole situation. I feel like that's the most basic
Okay,
explanation.
so a healthy ego would be okay. I got that. So ego is something that is more self-centered, and that is more about our best interest, putting ourselves first.
And that's the thing, right? Like we think it's the best interest for us, but it's just trying to prove that it probably is not.
Okay.
It most likely
Yeah,
is
yeah.
not.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
So it is. So you were saying, continue in that same vein. You were saying that it is about um, putting ourselves first, why am I losing my train of thought here?
Mm.
Um,
And
okay, let's go back. How would you define ego?
yeah, for me, ego is an emotion that's a part of us which is there, and which comes up, I think, to it's almost like it's coming to protect us. That's what I used to think earlier, but actually if not aware, it's probably being destructive towards us, because it's just, I think, um to it's almost like proving part of us,
Mm.
where we are trying to prove how something about what I'm saying is better or right, or what I'm doing is better, or what I think is better, or that I am right.
Mm.
And where it doesn't allow you to see the whole, or understand from different spaces, different perspectives. And I feel it becomes very, I don't think it's self-centered, but it's more like it's blinded.
Mm.
It blinds you
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
from everything else
From
that is
realities.
actually
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, that's how I define it. So uh, for me, self-respect is the opposite of ego. For me, that's how I see it. So I see when self-respect is pushed to the negative end of the spectrum. For me, that's ego. And which I agree with you, which is completely blinded, doesn't see realities as it is, and is just looking to win, is just not looking to have its way, and not seeing what needs to be done, or what's in the best interest of everything and everyone, including the situation.
Including self, even,
Yeah,
because it's just a momentary, I think,
yeah,
thing.
it's just thing that my way. That's all.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how I perceive it. For me, that's what makes sense to me, and that's how I keep my ego in check, and that's where at least that's how I factor it into my life, and differentiate the two, or differentiate the negative side of ego. Interesting. How would uh,
Yeah. But anyway, so I think, sorry,
uh,
so I was thinking, like, one is the ego,
uh,
and we were we thought, like, egos, how do we deal with egos and successes, and then still find our relevance in our relationship.
relationships, yeah.
Because going back to what we started with, is you I mean, I think ego coming up is such a normal thing. But when I think there are a lot of times when egos come up when you see your partner more successful, or whatever successful,
Mm.
whatever that is.
Comparatively successful to you, or in your own comparison, I don't know.
I don't know, that's the
No, so
I mean,
so for me, as in we have like,
no, we're discussing about
correct,
that topic.
yeah, I know. So I think that holds good if you're possibly in the same field, literally, and say for example in our case, I don't know how it would have been if we both were simultaneously pursuing a career, and going through life together. Would we have been competitive with each other about our successes? For me, it just seems like a very foreign concept.
Even I feel, but I think we're even talking about this because we feel it's a very common thing that happens, where um, I think partners are, you know,
Jealous.
jealous almost of each other. I don't know if it's just the successes, but about a lot of things, I guess.
Yeah, I think it depends on the status quo of the relationship, right? And how one actually goes through a relationship. I think one of the things we did well, I think, and which I'm really happy about, is that we kind of set our principles in stone by which we will live our relationship. Those 5 pillars, and so that, okay, like, these are our 5 pillars, and then so we know that if any one gets shaky, the other 4 hold them good, and that's held us good in multiple situations in our relationship, in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So and for me, I feel like oftentimes people get into relationships without having those um, standards or pillars by which they will, the foundation by which they will build their life together. And I think because that awareness to not set that foundation, uh, they often, when life happens as it does, I feel that they don't have the tools in place because they haven't figured it out. And even for us, it wasn't like we figured it out on the word, like just like out of the blue. We went through so many challenges
Mm.
before we said, okay, you know what? We really need to set, like, we really need to lay a foundation here.
Yeah.
We need to go back to scratch. I came to, I think, a year after we got married. I said, enough. I think we need to hit reset now, and we got to figure this whole thing out. How is this?
We will reset a couple of times, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first reset, but I think the first reset was about our principles, right? It was about honesty, loyalty, transparency, um,
Respect.
respect, and love.
Yeah.
So those I think we really cleared up in the first reset. I think the second reset was more about, okay, what are our needs, and what are our negotiables, non-negotiables, needs versus wants, and then when we set them in stone, and those needs and wants, we know that will keep changing over a period of time. They keep evolving as we keep evolving. And for me, I think that preparation or that foundation that we set holds us in good stead, irrespective of how ugly the fights get between the two of us.
Yeah.
And it does get intense between the two of us because we're really passionate, intense people. It does get intense between the two
Yeah,
of us.
and we are highly opinionated, highly strong-headed,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
highly everything.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something I feel, I don't, because I feel that these things we've discussed, and I think another reason for us where I really feel like we enjoy each other's success is because our roles are so defined for the two of us. I feel like we've set, especially after the kids have come, the definition has become a little bit more clearer. It's become more and more clear. And I think because we know the roles, I think it helps us navigate through life much more smoothly.
Yeah, I mean that part is great. But having said that, I don't think that changes, at least for me, how I would
Feel if I was attaining success.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so
I mean, you are attaining
Yeah.
success at all times, and it's just I think how you perceive it for me. Because for me, it's like if you're doing well, I'm like, hey, like I just feel so proud because
yeah, of
you're
course.
part of me and
Yeah.
you're the one I chose to be
Correct.
there.
So
And
what I was trying to say is that because we've defined these things, because we've discussed and we've defined these things in our relationship, we know where we're going and we know we're going together because we've discussed and decided all these things together. So we feel one. We don't feel like two separate individuals navigating
Yeah.
on a path together. We
Yeah.
feel one because we've done these things together.
Yeah.
We figured out
'Cause-
these things together.
yeah, because I think it's the same as like it's one is the success, and even say when
The failures.
you failures and when
True.
you are going through something, good or bad or ugly or whatever, it impacts the other person too, and
100%.
it impacts in a way where it's like it's happening to me, but it's obviously not, but it's almost like the impact is on me. And so I think it's not separate from what you go through. It's like, hey, I'm part of this journey, and we like it or not, we are going to feel each other's thing, and it's just about, okay, this is the individual who is actually going through this, and one is, if it's a great thing that I can be joyful, I can share that joy, and do that. And I think when it's not so great, you just, I think, be there as small things like strength, when they probably need it, because like in this case, like there are times when, say, you're not okay with a certain thing that has happened in your life. It affects me too, but it's just that I know that, okay, it's happened to you and you're the one primarily affected. And and uh, and that, yeah, I'm also affected, but I can't make this personal for me. I have to i have to know that this has happened to him, in turn us, but when he needs support with this, I need to step up and be there.
Yeah.
And not be dragged along with what you're feeling. Even though I'm feeling it, but obviously the levels are different because it's happened to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I believe that it's important to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I think for us it's like it doesn't feel like your success or your failures or your
Feels like ours.
anything. It
Anything.
feels like ours.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
for me, I tell you, one of the things I've noticed is that because of the definitions of roles being so clear, I feel like there are certain responsibilities that are mine, and there are certain responsibilities that are yours. And then I think when those responsibilities that are mine meet challenges and face challenges that I need to overcome or need to deal with and encounter, I feel like okay, then this is something that I have to make sure. Like for me, because it's defined for myself, it gives me a lot of strength to. I derive a lot of strength from that thought that okay, I need to do this for them, and I draw a lot of strength from that
mm,
because I feel one because we've done all of this together, so I derive a lot of strength from those aspects and say okay, okay, this is me, this is my responsibility.
mm,
I need to, I need to do this for them, but I want to do this myself because
mm,
I want to be this person for them. I want to get this done. So
mm.
I derive my strength from you all, but I'm still doing it to
For
just
yourself.
to satisfy my own self-respect, like to say okay, I want to
Yeah,
be that man,
yeah, yeah.
so for me it's like uh, it's something that I today encounter with a lot more strength.
Mm,
um, but yes, there are times when it's debilitating. It can be like whoa, this is like heavy, then just like insecure you feel like okay, how are you going to navigate through this? And then for me, then I was like okay, then you see one of the kids smiling, like dude, this is all worth it, man.
yeah.
And you see a picture of all of us, and you see a picture like sometimes I'm on the road when this happens, and you just see a
Mm,
picture of three of you all, and you're like shit, this is worth it,
mm,
you know and I'll get through this, and I'll make it happen.
mm.
And then you find a way. With you though, I've always kind of rooted for your success, man. So for me, one of the things about you is like I've always known you, right? I knew you even before we knew each other. Like
Yeah.
growing up, every time I was in the newspapers or anything in the sports section, I always see your name around there. So it's like I knew you even before I knew you because I think from the age of 9 or 10, when I was in newspapers, more often than not, you were in the newspapers as well and
Mm,
photographs. So I knew how you looked. I knew how you like. I knew what you played, and I practically tracked your success, and I felt like, oh, here's another peer of mine who's also successful, and I wished for success for you right from the beginning, even before I knew you.
mm.
So when I met you for the first time, I felt like, dude, I know this person. And like, shit, this is this girl who I've known my entire life and I've followed my entire life. So for me, your success has always been something I've wanted and rooted for. So for me, this concept itself feels very, very foreign. So,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think we have fumbled a lot in this conversation from the beginning. Like, I think we've found like, or we've tried to find words that fit in exactly, especially I think in the beginning, is because of this.
mm,
Because I feel like in
our
our,
situation is slightly different in that sense because,
yeah, but also I think with us, I think we are pretty clear about, I think, how our relationship works,
mm,
what works for
it's
us, and we
defined.
have, I think, clarified it so much.
Mm,
So we even say, yeah, we have our egos, that come up,
yeah.
in spaces. But I think over time, we've even figured how to handle that.
Mm,
Uh, but even earlier, I think even if we say went ahead and have been egoistic in spaces where we've hurt each other, I think it hasn't taken much time for us to
get back.
realize what has been done and come
Mm.
back and say either sorry or resolve the situation. And I think it's because of, I think we've always given importance to the love and connection, I think, that we share.
That foundation there, I think
Yeah,
those 5 pillars
yeah. So
we've
I think
always
we've
kind of.
never given too much energy or power to even things that has been uh, I don't know, been rooted with ego.
I also think one of the things that we do pretty well, which I'm very grateful for, is that whenever we've encountered a problem, we never look to avoid it.
Yeah.
we've looked to go through it. We've never looked to be in denial of it. Maybe we've delayed the conversation sometimes, but
Yeah.
push comes to shove,
Yeah,
we've
I don't
always
think
kind
we
of
are ever escaping
never. I think,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, we might take time sometimes to just figure how to have that conversation or how to make it, um, I don't know, productive or.
Yeah, but even the challenges that we're facing today
Mm,
are so much more evolved than the challenges we faced. When we initially started dating, right? As in, if you think about all the
of course.
little aspects that we dealt with, and so much of ego from then to now, it's like,
We've done
dude,
a good job.
we've come a ways right now. But even now, the challenges that we're encountering are so much more nuanced.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much more
The
finer,
final.
so much finer, and then like you have to
I
pay.
don't think we don't struggle with the smaller ones
No, no.
much, I guess, anymore.
Now I think we actually deal with it much more quicker than we used to in the past. I think now we like we get to it, and like just say it, finish it, move on, and then they're fine.
Yeah.
You know. I Do you struggle with relevance in the relationship?
No, not at all. I mean,
That's one thing I don't think we ever struggle with,
I
in my
don't.
opinion.
First of all, that feels
She's
like
this
a
kind of person who
no.
says, "Wait, say
Okay.
that from judgment."
That okay, but I'm just saying that I like this whole thing of relevance. I find it weirdly funny when people say I don't find relevance, or I don't feel relevant in a certain situation. And then for me, again, yet again, I think something we have spoken before, or I have spoken before, is that relevance cannot be based on anyone, anything, nothing. It has to be based on you. Like you can feel relevant when you know that in whatever space of your life that you are doing the best that you can, you are doing right, you are being honest about what you're doing, your conscience is clear. And I think for me, those are the basics. And for me, if I'm doing that right, I feel like I'm relevant. It's like I don't know if I have to find the particular relevance, but I'm not looking for it. But I just feel like anyone who's struggling with it, because a lot of people do, I feel like the first question um, that I think they need to ask themselves is what
No, but
is.
I think in relationships you can encounter a lack of relevance when, say, your partner behaves in a certain way, maybe perhaps in front of people. Uh, it could be, and then you suddenly feel irrelevant. Uh, so that sometimes because you're with somebody, you're in a relationship with someone, the other person can make you feel irrelevant. Even though, like, even though you might not uh, again, if you, it depends on how you set your relationship up. Like today, for example, if I take you out to a party where you don't know 90% of the people, and I've just left you by yourself, and I'm just going about my business, acquainting myself with the people there, and if I'm not sensitive to the fact that you don't know anyone there, then you would feel, one, disrespected, two, slightly irrelevant, that hey, I don't matter enough that he fully knowing that I don't know people here, he's just left me to my own to my own instruments and then just gone.
Yeah, I mean, see, the example you're giving, I would definitely be irritated. That, like, what was the point me coming here?
Mm.
Because what was the purpose of me
Mm.
being here? Clearly, that's an understanding that okay, maybe it was just I don't know formality or whatever. But I feel like still, see, I can perceive it as oh, I don't feel relevant at this point because of
No, that is an
the.
example of someone being made to feel irrelevant, like they don't matter, right? Isn't that what irrelevance is? Isn't, for me, that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I feel like it's see, no matter what situation, I feel like it's you have to find your relevance. And again, that means like see, this is just an example, right?
Sure, yeah, yeah,
Today,
yeah.
but it's still like I, I might just be like, or I should be rather, finding, like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to sit by myself? Do I want to make conversations with people? Yes, maybe my husband is busy, and or it could be anything, right? Like, it, I think, depends firstly on situation to situation.
Mm,
But I still feel like it's my responsibility to find my relevance if I'm looking for that in that space
mm,
itself,
mm, mm.
and I don't think it's anybody has the power to make you
Correct. That's because
feel
you own your power, right?
yeah,
And that's a great lesson. I think that's a great point. I think I love that point. I think. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, because I just feel like at all times being dependent on someone, something for relevance becomes, I mean, so fragile, because at all
But
times
it's
then,
slightly more complex in relationships, don't you think?
see, I feel that's again, see, if I say example in our relationship, in certain spaces where, say, I have not liked something, because I'm feeling like, hey, I don't matter here, or I don't feel relevant here.
Mm,
The first thing, if you are feeling that, I'm going to come up and tell you, you know what, I'm not liking this because this
of
is
course.
affecting me. And I feel like, but if that is the way that you want to be, one, for me to accept that, okay, this works for him, it might not work for me, but we'll have to find either the middle ground, or I have to find relevance, like, with this being like this, because sometimes it's not always possible to change everything
But
for
wouldn't that be
each other.
unfair to you to for you to say I have to find relevance, and then that would actually have further implications on the relationship. It would make things
Mm,
more complex, wouldn't it?
again, I guess it depends on how I perceive it, right? Because for me, it would be, um, see, I've explained this,
Mm, so
but say you have to do something different or compromise on something that is important for you, or that's your way of your alignment in some way, but doesn't uh, align with me. So how do we deal with it? So obviously it's a problem that I am feeling, right? One is that you can change it, but does that actually align with you? That means you're compromising on something. And instead, for me, it's like, if I'm feeling irrelevant, I need to figure why, number one, and then figure like, why is this affecting me? And
mm,
yes, I've expressed it, but even if he changes it, it it will change something in you, and then there'll be no end to that, I
yeah,
feel.
but that isn't that the dance or balance of a relationship?
Correct.
As
And
in,
more, if it's just situational, it's fine. But if it is something that is more, um, I think if it's deeper than that,
can you give us an example?
um, I don't, I don't know what to give. But generally, like, say,
But it's
there's
a good
a
thing. When even
certain.
after the pod, I want you to think about this because
No, I know.
then tell me. Why-
No, so I'm just saying. Say there's a certain, if you remember from before, I've been like complaining about. I keep complaining about, when you're talking to me, don't use the
Don't look at the
phone
phone. Yeah.
and talk to me. And I think there was a time when I used to get so upset about it, and I think, and I used to keep coming and telling you that I don't like this, I don't like this. But I think after a period of time, I understood that you used to try hard to not do it, but I realized
I've gotten a
that
lot better though from before.
you
To my credit, I've gotten a lot better.
okay. I'm just saying, but so the point being, I mean, after a point, I think I realized that.
In all of our fights, that's the first thing she says to me. That's
Do
why,
you realize
because
that's
that,
probably the
like,
only issue I have with
yeah, I think it's been about 3 or 4 years. This is the
more?
only issue that she she has with me. That no matter what I'm fighting about, the first thing if she retaliates, she'll be like, "You don't do this to me. You don't look. You keep
You
doing it."
don't look at me when I'm talking.
Okay. It's work in progress. I'll get there. I'll get there.
So, sorry. But yeah, the point being, I think over a period of time, it's not like, oh, I started feeling okay about it and then I said, okay, I don't care. Or it wasn't like that. But then I think I got to an understanding where, okay, this may be important for him.
Men
And
will be men.
no, I don't, I never use that
No, no.
term. But yeah, I believe every man is different. But yeah, so I just feel like, or rather, I know that phase where I was working through it because that was impacting me a lot. And I knew that, okay, I have to. My thing was, at least that's how it worked out for me, where I was like, if I love this person, no matter what it is, in this case, okay, it seems like a situation or whatever, this part of something that I don't like or, that's disturbing me. Number one, like, why is that bothering me? Okay, it's bothering me because, yeah, in the moment I feel I want to be heard. And, but the in the same situation, it's also that I'm not accepting the person as they're coming. And I feel like when the minute I've gotten acceptance into the picture, that okay, this is what works for you, and it's not like it changes overnight or it didn't change overnight, the trigger is still there. But I think you talk to yourself saying, yeah, but I accept him, this is how it is. And how do I navigate through this? It's how it started getting better for me, because then I started focusing on, I think, one is acceptance for the love, and I think two, that, like, this way, like, I think I'll keep getting upset with a lot of things, like also my peace, right?
It's a
Like,
great point. It's a great point.
but yeah, like, I lose my peace, then to prove a point, then ego pops in to prove that point, and I like, why complicate the whole thing? It's like, accept that this is what works for him. So let's see what works. How can I align myself to a place where, like, a big shift is not required. Unless it's that big where it's impacting you as a human being or me as a human being. I feel like there are things that we need to accept about each other without having that anger. I feel like initially I used to be like, fine, I will not ask you anything anymore, or I will not talk to you
Yeah.
and all that. I
For
remember giving
initially,
you those threats.
initially
Um,
you stop sharing even with me for a while. I'm like, why aren't you sharing with me?
Now what? I'm not going to share. And that was, I think, ego,
Yeah.
where I want to prove a point.
Yeah.
But I think obviously, as and when I've worked on myself, especially about this, I just felt like, hey, this is so silly, because
Yeah.
there'll be no end to that kind of things, and it only, I think, ruins relationships and ruins, or rather scars the good part of relationships, and it's so unnecessary, I feel. And I just felt like acceptance slash finding my peace without that, because I feel like we all have to find
No,
peace
but it's
without.
like I don't think it's a massive ask, to be very genuine to you, like, to be very honest with you, which is why I keep trying and working on it. But I keep trying and telling you that like, there are times in the middle of something on the phone and you will say something,
Like
and
yesterday morning, no, yesterday afternoon, this happened. Are you listening? Can you please listen to me? I'm talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
I need it. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening.
yeah, but now I have, like, consciously kind of dropped the phone. I'm like, yes.
And then he looks at me. I like
I
people
make
to
that eye
look at me
contact,
when
yeah.
I'm talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just I feel like, I think the culmination of relevance and
For me, I'll tell you one of the places where I've dealt with relevance, or maybe a lack thereof within our relationship. I think perhaps one of the aspects that I've had to constantly work with you and with myself is, and I don't know where this comes for you from, but we've, like, spoken more this right from the beginning, perhaps even like the early parts of our relationship. When I say something to you and I say, let's do this, or let's go here, or let's do this, instinctively her thing is no.
that's not true.
Like, the first response that comes out of your mouth is 99% no. And then I have to have, then it's like,
I disagree.
there you go.
No, I'm not gonna. Uh, I
So for me, in that whole exercise, for me, I've had to navigate through communicating that to you in a way where you get it, and for you to think before responding, to respond more than react. And for me, it's made me feel like, hey, I can't make a single suggestion where I will get a positive response from her. And that made me feel like, okay, this is, it took me a long time perhaps in our relationship to feel like, okay, this is not me, this is her, you know. And I had to talk to you about it, navigate through it by myself. And today I don't take it personally. I feel bad sometimes, but I don't take it personally. Then like when I feel bad, I actively try to remind you. I'm like, hey, wait, think about it. Don't just say no. Think about it. And there are reasons why I'm saying this. And then let's discuss it again. And then I put it across to you. And that's why for me, how I speak to you becomes a as a predisposition in my head. Like, okay, I have to navigate through this in a certain way. Because if I instinctively feel something which in a way has affected my spontaneity as a person. Because for me, I can't operate spontaneously now. I have to operate from a place of, okay, the thinking before speaking. There's good to it, there's bad to it. It's, it has both sides. But I found a balance now. I have, and like, even though right now we're navigating through a few things, I know that I will find a way to bring spontaneity back into a relationship on some level when we start navigating through those things in a healthy way. So I know that will come back. And I know that, okay, this is all work in progress. This is never like one side, like it
always
is.
be work
Yeah,
in
there's
progress.
always something to work on in relationships because we are individually evolving. So by proxy, by nature of us individually evolving, the relationship is constantly evolving. And then you throw the kids into the mix and their roles in our lives, and
Yeah.
then there's evolution there also. We were 5 years ago, we were dealing with one toddler and how that was impacting our lives. And today we're, how that's impacting not our lives, but our relationship. And then now we have two. And even before this pod, we were navigating through, listen, we need to figure out a way to, be a little bit more open-minded to even record the pod when the kids are up or not up. And so it's like always kind of figuring things out. And I think as long as the kids will be with us till they go on to live their own lives, we'll never really find. But I think the beauty of it is that space will again be new for us.
Yeah.
Back again.
Can't imagine.
What that yeah.
But can I, in my defense?
I don't think you need to defend yourself only. Because I feel like this is a part of any relationship, right? Because the evolutionary part of
Correct.
individuals.
But just want to
Yeah, okay,
clarify
go for it.
now that you have
Now that
brought
you
it
need
up.
to.
I don't need to, but because you brought it up, I just feel like I'm sure like a lot of people go through this because I've heard this. But I think couple of years back, because I've consciously thought about it, worked on it. Yeah, probably it's like I used to dismiss thoughts or ideas or whatever before, even agreeing or not agreeing. But I think for you, I think that has left an impact.
Yeah, of course.
And, yeah, but I guess now, even if I say 2 no's out of 10, you feel like everything is no. And I
No,
just
no.
feel like,
So now I'll tell you why
Because
I
I
feel the
think-
no's are lesser. Because one is I stopped. One is I stopped taking it personally, and two is so there's so much forethought before I even say something to you. Like I don't like before. What would be a
But-
question today is a suggestion. So
But
the
also-
chances of me
but you don't
feeling.
remember my yeses.
No, I do. Of course, I remember.
No, because
see,
you're never remembering my yeses, and then you're like one no, and you're like you're always saying no. Like I'm always saying yes these days, and you're not remembering those. You're attacking my one no. I feel from my perspective, that's what it feels.
yeah, but a lot of your yeses also have non-verbal no's.
Yeah, because I disagree. It's when I
So,
disagree.
but
I'm
the,
like, sure.
but that's why the
But I
empathy.
say sure because I've changed my whole thing from no to
Sure.
sure, let's try. And
And
then
then not try. But I think that's I've today operate from a place where I suggest things more than say, let's do this, let's do that. I actually suggest stuff. And that's obviously helped me deal with any say, anytime you instinctively say no, or you instinctively, like non verbally say no, because the communication is twofold today. Communication is verbal and non-verbal, and I like we experience it with each other, right? Today, I can say I'm fine and not be fine, and be like, okay, this guy's not fine, and vice versa, right? And we know, and then you'll give us, or but today we're a lot. I think in a much better place where we're like, if you're not fine, like you know what, I need some time.
Mm, yeah.
But I think that we've navigated through that situation where we we've evolved, and I think today that doesn't affect or make me feel or make my feelings feel irrelevant anymore. But I don't think I've ever struggled with relevance when it comes to your success. I've only wanted you to be more successful. I'm like going out there and like I'm like, hey, here my wife, she done this. Because I actually love that about you, and I feel like you don't do enough justice, like you don't do enough for yourself with regards to that.
Yeah, but I guess that's because of like I think earlier said that I think our foundation is pretty clear, you know, like as to how we played it, and because of which I think these are not like the big factors of our relationship. I
Yeah.
feel like that's part of our relationship, which
Yeah.
we enjoy along the way, and
Yeah.
if it's not so successful, we deal with it along the way, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm just smiling because I think we did one of the hardest things we could have done with each other in a relationship when we got back. And we got brutally honest with each other about everything in our lives.
Mm.
And that was hard for our relationship for the first 2 years. And I think once we got past that, dude, we were cruising, man.
Yeah.
I think one of the easiest things is like we can bump into any exes of ours and we'll be like so cool
Yeah.
because we've done the work for that. We've put in the struggle for that. Our relationship has put in the work for that.
Yeah. I think honesty always honesty, transparency.
I had a lot of friends who I told them about, hey, I've told sheets about every woman I've been. I'm like, you guys don't understand. Yes, it was a struggle and a half initially, but I don't have to remember a thing today. I don't have to remember shit because you know everything. For me, it's like I have to just go through life where we bump into anyone where like it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter.
And vice versa, right? And for me, it's actually more fun right now. It's like you have a laugh about it.
Yeah, but I think that's what, like, I think in any situation or any part of your relationship, I think as long as you're transparent and honest about it
and communicate.
And communicate that, as it is. I just feel like we've learned it, I think,
The hard
so
way,
much, and like obviously like the hard way, that but eventually the things that we've been absolutely transparent and honest with has been the things that don't touch us anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, because it's like, hey, like, yeah, it was,
It's the small
and
stuff
now,
actually now.
yeah, in that moment it might be hard to deal with, etc., but I think how you move forward with that becomes very simple, and then you actually leave it behind.
Yeah. For you, what was that one takeaway for you from that experience of being brutally honest with each other?
Initially it felt like, whoa, this is a lot to take. But I think there was I don't know how to exactly explain this feeling, but there was a feeling of, I know this guy. And I think that is a big deal, at least for me. Because we're gonna get married and be, with each other, have kids. I think the least I want is that no matter what happens in life tomorrow, I can vouch for you as to who you are. And no matter what,
Mm.
because I know from the scratch of it to the end of it until whenever, right? Because I can vouch for that space. And I feel like that's a very, very important thing. And I think it's also like I would love to, you know like I love feeling that, because I know it's similar for you, because no matter what happens, that what, I know her, this is one thing I know she will, or she will not, or she can't, or whatever it is. Because just to know that no matter what happens in life,
Mm.
someone knows me as I am, and
Mm.
whatever it is, I just feel like for me that was a game changer.
For me, what I took away from a lot of that is acceptance, uh, and agreeing to disagree. For me, I think some of the biggest takeaways for me from the early parts of our relationship, that it's absolutely fine to not agree on the same things,
Yeah.
and not to agree. It's absolutely fine. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to, like,
Yeah, we don't need to always agree
Yeah.
and be on the same,
Yeah.
page. I think sometimes I think our
And
core
on
value,
most things we disagree, by the way.
almost everything.
Yeah, on most things we disagree. We are, as in, every time I say, you know what, I think this about this, you be like, no, this is what I think.
I don't
about
say
it."
no. I say, oh, I think differently. I mean, there's a difference. See, it's in your head that you are saying. I say no,
So
I
when I say,
don't.
for example, when I say, this is what I think about the situation, you would say, no, 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 I think this is how it is. So,
I feel this way about this. Is how I communicate.
and
That comes across as
is
a
what
no
you
to
think,
you.
yeah, is what you think, baby. But anyway, that's where we shall agree to disagree yet again.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you so much for
Yes,
joining us
thank you.
on this quite an in-depth episode. We didn't expect this to be this
Yeah.
long.
We actually were pretty confused about
She
how.
was, I was, I knew
Yeah,
that we'd be
I
able to
was
speak.
confused about, okay, how are we, what all are we going to, navigate through this conversation. But I think it just took its own way as always.
Yeah, it does.
And yeah, I hope you all, resonate with it in some way. If
Yeah.
you do, it's great. And some might be like, oh, exactly opposite has happened. Oh, yeah, in
Yeah.
some way it will resonate. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, as in, thank you for joining us on this episode of True Perspective, where we spoke about egos, managing success, and how do you feel relevant and deal with your relevance when in the success of your partner. And we shared a few things about our relationship here on this episode, and tell us about how you navigate your relationships. Do you have principles by which, or foundations by which you'll have set your relationship out? And how does it help you navigate through your relationship? Share with us on the comments, and we'll interact with you on those comments. And thank you for joining us again.
Yes, thank
And we'll
you.
see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye, guys.